on this computer. Now, is it recording?
Yes,
You
it
see?
is.
Okay, good, good. Oh, hey, thanks. So welcome everyone again to this special meeting. We're going to go ahead and officially adjourn it. And this, I realized at the last minute, I didn't get to the office to pick up the official looking gavel. So this piece of maple.
I like that better.
So I declare the meeting started. I should do it. Yeah, at the end of the meeting, I'll do that. So this is, just to explain before we started the agenda, this is we're calling this a special board meeting because we have all the board members here. So we had to do the notices and such. But it's really, this is well, we've been never really settled on the name of it, but it's kind of an information meeting, a little bit of status of the district financially. This meeting is a result of the board officially deciding to go at the last board meeting to go forward, at least the next steps here, to go forward with a new measure for the ballot for the November 8th general election, coming up in a few months. As a special district, we have a process to go through. The Infrastructure and Finance Committee being led by Canute, as he's been doing for a few years here now, has been working this, and it's in a continuation from Measure P, which, as you know, all did not pass. We're trying to gather the lessons learned from that and restructure it to something that will pass, adjusting budgets and so forth, and how we approach the money, which we'll be talking about in the presentation here. Because overall, you see, we're in, as you see, and we have a lot of backup information, we're in an unsustainable condition here. We're in a glide slope down. It's just a matter of when right now, unless we go do something from a financial standpoint to sustain the airport and to sustain the streets. So this meeting is really to present information to you, which Diane will be doing, and look for your comments and discussion and information which can help formulate and make changes. The numbers, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me go ahead and start the official agenda here as we're going to talk. So first of all, roll call. Terry's here.
Diane's here.
Okay. Thank you. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. Turn this on a flag. Can you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is to adopt tonight's agenda. Was advised by Jeff of a mistake. The agenda is for tonight's meeting, not the last one we had. So I crossed it out here in the agenda. This is all focused on new business as a special board meeting. State of the district, kind of for lack of a better kind of a term. And that's really what this meeting's all about. Then we'll have the public comment, the discussion that goes along with it. Then we'll adjourn. I'd like to keep the meeting to about an hour and a half. The next regular board meeting is the end of the month on March 28th. Now let me go to some other material here. Okay, can everybody see that? And the folks online, can you see the charts? I'm going to assume so.
Yes.
If there's somebody's,
I can see them.
okay, you can see them. Okay, good.
I can
As mentioned, this is really a financial status forecast information meeting. It's a dialogue with yourselves here. This is going to be the first of a series of meetings. Right now, we have tentatively planned 4 of these meetings, with the last one being kind of the official meeting that we're required to have as far as the notice period. So the objectives of tonight's meeting is to present the financial status forecast for CPAD. And those here at the last board meeting, you saw some of this material. We've made some changes in it since then. Present the needs of the airports at a high level and the streets to sustain ourselves here. Present how the new funds will be managed. For those of you here before, that was kind of the tier levels that we set up. present possible tax increase or special tax increases and what they would do. Discuss the options and we'll seek your comments. Then we're going to take the results, kind of the discussion, we'll be taking notes and make possible changes to how we're approaching this. And then we're gonna have another meeting and we'll do the same thing. Because we want to try to get something that means something and it can pass, because we don't have a lot of time. So as I mentioned, this is the first of the information meetings with an opportunity for the public. We want to try to get as many people as we can at these meetings prior to when the board makes the final approval. It's a resolution to submit this to the county so it can appear on the ballot. After that, there'll be likely a committee like we did for Measure P formed and then have campaign type things. Not that, but the board is not involved with that. The agenda, as I say, is this introduction. Want to go through a presentation by Diane here. Ensuing discussions, and say part of that is a discussion with her material. We've got the backup material ready to go for that. And at the end, we kind of want to have a mock poll, or a ballot, or a poll or something. We have a handout toward the end of the meeting, slips of paper, and we want to kind of get some feedback of what you think. You put a letter on, you see kind of which option you're doing so far. And we'll try to count those up and present those tonight. For those online, when we have the mock vote, if you could send me via email what your vote is, and I'll send that to my email out here later on. But right now, that mock vote is putting a letter down. Just some of the terminology as we go into that. We talk about the term special tax. Where that comes from is that's where what we currently pay for the area, that's the way it shows up on our property tax, like the special tax, $300. That's the per year cost right now. So that's just simply where it comes. But we're also calling it several other terms that we're using. What do we call
I changed it to special tax. so
Special
it's
tax, okay,
consistent, And that
okay.
was one of the changes I
One-
made before the meeting.
When
yeah.
there's airport assessment in there.
So, right, so
Well, so
we're
it-
clear.
you may hear people call it a variety of things, but if it's something that shows up on the property tax, which is what we're requesting as part of this measure, it labels as special tax.
Yeah.
That is voted on by registered voters who live within the airport district. Particularly, that's our airport here. It requires a supermajority to pass 67%. And you see how close we came on for Measure P 2 years ago. Excuse me, it is a fixed amount until changed by the voters. Our current special tax of $300 a year has been in place since 1995, which is part of our problem. Things have changed them. The voting is administered by the El Dorado County Elections Department. It shows up on every ballot and everybody's has seen before. Then just to clarify, then there's a thing called an assessment district. It's a district or a group of residents here created to fund a specific project. And it ends when the associated loan or bond is paid off. As that applies to us, you see on your property tax bill, I think it's about $900 a year shows up for the special assessment. I think that's the title. That was for a street bond, which was done in 2009, and that bond matures in 2029. That is one vote per property. It's not registered voters, but it requires a simple majority to pass. Voting is administered by a third party, like an accounting firm here. The county head doesn't really have anything to do with it, although as a district and a government body, we have a bunch of requirements to pass through there. And that cost of that election is paid by CPAD. So I just want to clarify, because you're going to hear a bunch of terms here. There's a special assessment district, a special assessment. That's different than the tax here, which shows up in the property tax. The special tax goes on and forever until it's changed. The special assessment ends when that particular project is completed. The loans associated completed. We're gonna have more on this later. It's hard to read. I showed this before. Diane has a much nicer
Well,
one.
yours has more detail than mine.
Yeah, we had the board meeting on February. That was to say go forward. Starting a series of information meetings, say I penciled in here 4 meetings, the next one being on the 21st. Largely anticipate most of the material is going to be the same, but it's going to depend on the outcome of this meeting. We can come up with a completely different approach to this. But we're at the next board meeting on the March 28th, the board will review and have to approve the notices that will go out to residents. This is the official mailing of the notices that go out that we're required to do. Those notices right now, we're planning to mail those on March 1st. It may vary a day or two of there, but that begins a required 45-day period.
What date was that?
Did I say March? I say April 1st. Yeah, April 1st, sorry. And that's where we're required to have at least one of these official meetings. Right now, I think that'll probably be the third or fourth meeting shown on the chart here. Then at the May 23rd regular board meeting, excuse me, there's introduction to ballot to the board, some fancy other language that goes along with that reading, and then we have an initial approval of that. A month later, at the June 27th regular board meeting, the consider and look at the potential adoption of a resolution. It's higher than the motion, but a resolution that says go ahead, go forth, submit this to for voting on. We have a deadline of July 6th to get that material to the El Dorado County Elections Department. We went through this 2 years ago, and it looks simple on the schedule here, but there's kind of a lot of iterative process with them. And of course, the election is out in November, and there'll be some other activity after that. That's okay. I'm jumping ahead of myself. So what I'd like to do now is move on to Diane. Do you want to share?
Right, I do.
You want to
Let's
share with
see,
your? Let me open up the sharing to you.
your screen, host
Can you-
disabled, you have to enable it somehow.
You should have it now.
Share.
So the first part, we'd like, Diane's going to present. I'd like to kind of hold the questions. It's kind of toward the end of the material. And this is kind of some clarifications. Diane?
Yeah, I guess I'll stand. Hi, well, first of all, it's so great to see so many faces and thank you for coming. It means you care. And regardless of where you're at on this, we're glad you're here. And I'm Diane Sharif. I'm new to the board. We're all residents. We all get one vote. In fact, I wanted to get rid of the tables and just all sit in a circle. And we needed to have a place for our laptops. But we're a community and we're representing what we all collectively want to do. And not everybody's going to agree, but what I'm hoping is that we can find something, get enough feedback and make enough adjustments in value process that we can do something that we all approve. So with that, come on, there we go. We'll start out with our district and who we want to be. I took this photo off something that Dominic sent out, and it really is amazing. What year was this? Do you know? I actually blew it up, and it says something about plaintiff. It was something
beyond that. It was involved in a court case, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's amazing about it is, first of all, that there's no restaurants in Cameron Park Drive, but also that all the property and how much we've changed over the years. And it also explains a lot on how we were able to exist, because you'll see that we don't own a lot of that property anymore. But who do we want to be? I think that hopefully we can all agree that we like living here and we want to keep what we have. And so there's a lot of difference between those. But we certainly have a unique residential airport, and the structure is also very unique and complicated. Provider of exceptional service, good service, excellent service, you take your pick. But the most important bullet on here is we need to be self-sustainable, both financially and operationally. Here is our governance, and we're certainly not going to go through this chart, but there's a point here. First of all, everything in this airport, everything in this presentation, green is for the air park, and so the roads, and blue is for the airport. And so as an entity, we are a public entity. We are responsible for both sides, which is a balancing act. And we want to make sure we hear a lot of, on the air park side, we certainly don't want to subsidize the public airport, right? We're a public airport, but we're an air park. Then on the FAA is saying, well, wait a minute, the public airport shouldn't subsidize your lifestyle in the air park. So, so it's a balance, and we've got to get it right together. And here's a chart. Don't worry about the numbers. The point of this chart is the balance that we just talked about. We are not self-sustainable financially nor operationally here. I just joined the board 5 months ago and had an opportunity to dig in. And the important pieces on this chart, as you can see how, here's our property tax. That does go just for the roads, but you can see, relatively speaking, you know.
You should explain that when we talk about property, in this context, property tax, we receive approximately $13,000 to $14,000 a year from the county. Debbie Canoe from this. This is not a line item on your taxes that shows up. The county, depending on the overall, I guess, big picture of the finances for the entire county, and the formula they have that's set by the state allocates us about $13,000 to $14,000, and it goes toward the streets. We take that money and it builds up in our street maintenance fund at $13,000 to $14,000 per year. That number varies, because you understand this year because of the fires.
Might be smaller this year.
Yeah, it might be smaller this year because more money is going into, well, they're not getting the property taxes from those houses, so that overall pot is going down. So that's associated property tax here. It's not a line item on your taxes.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. And Terry mentioned this, we've got our bond that was in 2009, it was a 20-year bond, and it pays the bond for the work that has already been done. On the airport side, the blue is revenue from, fuel income, hangars, tie downs, transient, and then down here is our special tax that we pay. That's an monthly, well, it's $25 a month, and right now that goes to the airport. And so that's where we're at as far as our income and the two sides that we're trying to balance. The financial action is needed now. Any future work on the roads, our property tax isn't enough to cover it. We would require another bond. On the airport side, $25 from 1995. If you look in those calculators, you'll see that that's about $46 in 2022. So with inflation, the numbers just don't work. One of the big problems and opportunities lost on the airport side is this idea of grant money. If we can come up with 10% of a project, we can get grant money from Caltrans, from the FAA. We need an airport layout plan. We just need, there's a little entrance fee, but we don't have enough money to do that. So it's like this stair step, and then the doors open and we can't get there. What happens with where we're at is state of slow deterioration until loss of fuel, night ops. We could debate this, property values, and that's what we don't want to see happen. So Measure P, the collective neighborhood 2 years ago came up with a proposal, and here it is here, just to remind you of what it was. It was $75, and the proposal was for $25 to go over here to the roads, to the green side, and $50 to the airport. There's a lot of debate. It was close. Some people didn't want any tax. Yeah. Per month. Per month, exactly, correct. Some people didn't want any tax. Some people said, well, that's great, but I don't agree with how it's being spent. Some people said, yes, 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 and we need more. So and it was almost there. And here are the results of Measure P, which is why it was very, very close. And my colors aren't showing up, but these are all green. And first of all, we had a 91% turnout. Again, people care. 67% passes. So we need, what is it called? A super majority? Yeah, super majority. We were 10 votes short of passing. So it's almost like don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We had parts of it right, parts of it could be changed, and that's what we're trying to do here, retain what was good and get some feedback and see if we can't adjust that to get something that works. But, you know, 10 people, it's pretty amazing. And so one of the, some of the feedback from that is just understanding and communication, how will this be spent? And Terry came up with this model, which I think is fabulous. It's a 4-tier model where we can outline the benefits. It's like, okay, I'm paying this money, what do we get? Because we all agree on what we're gonna get. And here are the tiers. Tier 0 is the bottom is we paying down debt. We're gonna patch things up where we can, lagging repairs, but we're not gonna keep up. It's going to deteriorate. Tier 1 is we can do minor repairs and short-term operations. We don't have reserves. And I like to think about this in the sense of your house. You know, when you're tier 0, you may, okay, my plumbing breaks, you know, I may be able to get a plumber or somebody and patch it up, but God forbid my heater goes or I need a new roof. So you can start, you see those houses, you know, slowly they deteriorate. How long before they got real problems? We don't know. Tier 2 is self-sustaining. Good place to be, solid place to be. We've got ongoing operations. We can maintain what we have, and end-of-life asset replacement. We can replace things after, you know, they've depreciated, you know, fuel, you know, things that have a life, you know, things break, costly things break. And that's what that is. And then tier 3 is reserved for improvement. And this goes back to what do we want to be? And there's, you know, this would have to be defined, but for the purpose of this discussion, actually Mike came up to me at the last one and he said, let's put something here and price it out. And so we've done that today. And some of the examples would be a gated community, some better security with video surveillance and fencing on both sides. And so integrated gate key systems, so we know who's coming and going and things like that. So that's what tier 3 would be. So where are we? Any guesses? Here, where are we? The streets, we're here on page 0, we're paying down tier 0, we're paying down debt. And we're slowly deteriorating. It's a debate, the streets look pretty good still, but there's no plan, right? Tier 1 is for the airport. We're literally taking wire and patching our fences. Right, Dominic? We're making things work the best we can, but it's like our house. If our roof goes, our fuel goes, we don't have the reserve. We haven't saved it up for this.
We can support volunteers.
And we've got plenty of volunteers and people who care. So that's where we're at. And it's just a way to visualize it. And here there's obviously many options and combinations. We came up with options for discussion today. And none of we could walk away, we could end up approving something totally different. But this is where we're starting from. And having this discussion. Here's our current, which is tier 0. This is our $25 a month. The next one up would be an increase of $25 a month. And we'll go into each one a little bit more, but what this would do is it would keep where we're at tier 0 for the streets, tier 1 for the airport, and kind of a 4 to 7 year deferral. So it's buy some time. And there are some variants that we can do here. But the next one would be $50, and that we could move each one up a tier. So we can move our streets to tier 1, our airport to tier 2, and then go and so forth. So $90 brings both streets and airport to tier 2, and then we have our $295, which would be tier 3, and that would be, you know, premium.
You just emphasized the tier 3, as Diane said, that's a lot of undefined things.
It's undefined.
Mike asked us to put some stuff there. It's nothing we've taken a real serious look at.
But, you know, if there was an appetite for it, we could do that. But we'll, so here's a little, just to go through each one a little more, because we've been looking at these charts, and so we've got our heads in this and seeing it for the first time. It's a lot of information. So this is our deferral. So let's be clear, we got $25. And what this would do is it would keep us where we're at. We still have a slow deterioration of the streets. We could have a one-time fear and assessment that could be done through the assessment district that Carrie talked about. In addition, that would take it, you know, there are some obstacles we have to go through to do that, but that's a possibility, or we could have a new bond. Here's tier 1, and this is 4 to 7 more years. We could get our airport layout plan and some of the critical projects. So that's what our deferral would do for us. Here is the roads and airport up a tier. So so we have $50, 25 goes to the streets here. We can get some crack seal, minor repairs needed. We still would need eventual new bond for resurfacing, but that would be out some ways. We're how many?
Like 20 years.
Yeah, that's out like 20 years or so. So we've got a lot of time in between now and then. And then the $25 for the airport fuel system, we can take care of our existing infrastructure with our airport layout plan and begin to take advantage of some of those grants. So that's a comfortable place to be. This is just so you can see what that does to the you know, the balance between the airport and the roads. One thing that we would also propose, and this is a parallel effort, it's not just about this side, we're also looking at the airport side, and both sides have been really deficient in funding. And we're going to look at the revenue on the airport side and make sure that we're at least market. We've got, you know, looking at our hangar leases and our airport tie downs and making sure that we're priced the best way. So, and we believe that we're slightly underpriced, and we can get more money over there as well. So both sides, as we talked about, both sides getting together. Here's roads and airport to tier 2. So this is plus $90, and this we would get. We had our airport in tier 2, but here we would have a crack seal, a minor repair, a resurfacing, and no new bonds. So we can start saving. So you know, so we don't have to go for that lumpy money that no bond, those high costs. And so that's what that does. So we pay an annuity, but then we are self-sufficient, which is what we want. And then this one, it actually looks pretty even, doesn't it? That's what this one does. $65 would go to the roads, $25 to the airport. We still look at our competitive prices over on the airport side. And here we are. And we will come back to a summary. And here is our roads and airport to tier 3, $295. Then you can do some things here, ideas and improve drainage, curb drains. Our drainage is could need some work here. An entrance gate, you can do something with an entrance gate, fence and airport gate, video surveillance. On the airport side, widen our runway to FAA standards, improve drainage, obstruction lights, new CPAD. So take our airport to the next level. And so that's just an option. And then you can see what happens there. It's actually, and the reason why the roads is so much higher is because we're counting on getting some grant money on the airport side, and that's why it looks like that. Okay, this is a busy chart, but it brings it all back together. So here are our options: current, deferral, up a tier, tier 2, tier 3. Here's our increase monthly that we would proposed, and then the yellow would be your total out of pocket as a homeowner here. And then here we have how they're split out. So current would be, we've got $25 to the airport, 0 to the street. We start to go red in 2023. We've got no projects, and it's just a slow decline. And we don't have any more property to sell off, which is something we don't want to do if we did. Deferral. This is an option where we can adjust for inflation. This gives us our inflation adjustment. That gives us some time. It is non-sustainable on both sides. It does not solve our problem. It, in a bit, kicks the can ways down the road. But there are some options for adding a one-time fee or some other things that we could do to make at least the streets sustainable here. Up a tier, oh, hi, kitty cat. Up a tier, this is $50, and it moves the streets to tier 1 and airport to tier 2. $90, move both to tier 2 with no bond. $295, both to tier 3. We start to get some new projects and we start to improve our neighborhood. But that's an investment. So that's let's see. This chart, one of my favorites. I almost forgot the favorite chart. Okay, so when you look at your friends and your family and what they pay for like a homeowners to live in a neighborhood, I know, you know, my parents have a place and they pay $300 and they get their grass mowed and their snow shoveled and their light bulbs changed. And we're running an airport here, so it kind of puts things in perspective. Well, is this reasonable? Is it not reasonable? How do our options fit? And so here is just some basic data, a range from California. When you look it up, what are the assessments? And goes from $100 to $1,000, and our average here in California is between $200 and $300 a month for associations that are, and there's different levels. Some people have pools, and obviously there's, you know, different levels of services that go along with that. It's kind of an average. Current, we're way down here. Our deferral plan is still way under. Our upper tier is still under the lowest. Tier 2, now we're within the California range. We've got the Alpine Air Park here, and we could get some more data as we start socializing this a little bit more. But Alpine Air Park is kind of right in the middle of California average, and then our tier 3 that sounds like, you know, just, you know, unattainable is really just kind of at the top of the California average. So so that puts into perspective. Yeah.
I was just saying this just before today, I got something from Spruce Creek. I think it was in Florida, the big one.
Yeah.
They call it a maintenance fee. It's $1,600 a year. So they're way off the scale for here. And that's all private.
So
That's cheaper than $300 a month.
Well, 1,600.
They're tier 3, but it's like.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes, it is. Yeah. Let's see. That's what is it worked out to be. That's
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which this one?
Yeah, why aren't we saying that the plus 90 and total cost is 115?
Because we got, hopefully I didn't, okay, that's adding 25 plus 90. So this is, we're paying $25 now.
To the 20.
Yeah, so it's, you know, as a homeowner, you want to know, what's my tax going to be? I don't.
We were taking it to 90.
Yeah, I didn't want people to perceive that we were hiding, you know, kind of like what, you know, what is the total out of pocket addition? And that just makes it clear so people can understand what it means for their budget and their families. But thanks for that question, because it took us a while to get our heads around this. Does anyone else want me, let's see. So here, okay, so we're to the point of the discussion. Yes, please.
The reference to 1,600, I didn't hear the resolution. Was it in Florida at 1,600 per month?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. How do you want to handle
So
this?
I
Jerry?
just a little background. Now you see it's all a bunch of numbers and we calculated this.
Oh,
We set up a spreadsheet starting with measure P, and it's been refined a lot for here, that took all the various projects and the cost as best we could estimate it, looked at years when you start saving for and years when you spend. Those were based on when, based on the information we had, is when you need to do the various maintenance things, particularly in the airport and the streets. Ran those together, and then the model calculates, can put an assumed inflation rate in there, so forth, and then it generates, you can do a goal seek on it, or plug numbers in it, but it comes out with these numbers here. So it's a result of a whole bunch of spreadsheet
It's
analysis.
a
which we can
lot
show
of
you.
work. It is a lot of work, and I think Terry would love to show you guys.
Oh, I love that.
Because it is as sophisticated as we can possibly do for this exercise.
How about if I show one where we're at?
I think you should.
Yeah, okay.
I
Let's
think
see
you
if I
should.
can.
While Terry's pulling that up, just as far as the tiers, any feedback, just before we get into the numbers? Phil, yeah.
Yeah, on your tier 3, you're gonna have some issues there because we can't put in a gate. They've already told us they won't allow us to do it. The Caltrans,
Okay.
300 feet, so we need to not put that in as a
Your stuff, yeah.
possibility of something we're gonna do with that money.
Okay.
They're never
It-
going to allow us to do.
Yeah, okay.
It's no understanding.
Yeah, we
We bought a property.
Okay, we're, okay, that's,
Yeah,
people that are really, we're getting into detail, though, but the idea is to make this.
I understand that you're gonna promote something, and this is what we're gonna do with the money, we can't do that.
no, the tier 3 stuff was something we just put together. It's not ready for prime time, but was to give a general idea of the type of.
We'll take it out.
We'll take it.
We'll take it out,
Yeah.
Phil, and we'll put something else in there, yeah,
If we were gonna spend that kind of money, we're looking at $5,000 a year.
we'll take it out.
It's,
If we multiply that out, that's over $500,000 for the apartment. Wow.
It's a top level thing, we'll take it out. Steve?
Last time, I think we had some real good arguments. The one thing you guys, in my opinion, need to do is when I call you up and say, Mike Bigler is saying this, you need to find out what is being said, get to the bottom of it, and
Mhm.
stop it if I'm incorrect or if he's incorrect. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was the biggest problem we had.
Misinformation?
Was that,
Was it Mike Bigler? I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Was Mike- I'm just
So
kidding.
anyway,
My
that's
second
my
round.
observation is, you guys got a good idea, and I agree, we've got to raise some money. We do need to do it reasonably, but to my thinking, the biggest issue we got here is
Yeah,
it's the rumor mills and the bull.
how to stop that, I don't know, I mean, I've got,
As soon as you hear about it, and again, if Mike says he heard me say something, one of you guys needs to come over and talk to me.
Yeah.
And find out exactly what's going on. And so you're gonna make an enemy out of one or two people.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, you've got to cure the bullshit right at its source in the
Okay.
beginning. And after a couple of assaults like that, and I'm gonna call it that, that'll stop. But that's been the biggest problem in the
Okay.
aviation industry. Pilots are their own worst enemy, you know,
Very-
so.
very,
we really gotta
very
practice
strong-willed
that.
people and with opinions, so, thanks for that.
Sign up for a board work, if I call.
Yeah, you bet.
I think something to think about, which might help with the tier, jumping the tiers that we want. is Right now, we have all the portable T hangers over there.
Yeah.
And that one gentleman is paying $200 a month.
we're
Yeah,
very painfully aware of that, yes.
I think that he should be assessed for every hanger. I know there's technicalities on that, but that's like saying there's 120 houses here, you only have to pay $200. It's the same principle. It's a lot of houses here, we're all paying our $300. He has all those hangers, and I think they all should pay their $200. And I know it's a big waiting list for tie downs.
yeah,
We're competitive with Possible right now, but from the airport I came from, they didn't care what the tie down was at other places, they just raised it, actually doubled it.
Yeah.
And they had a waiting list.
And I guarantee you, if you did that, literally, if you doubled the rent out there,
yeah,
you're gonna lose one and gain five.
Yeah.
Doubling is
Yeah.
extreme, but I think there's a point where we can start going, okay, $15, $20 per hour handler, just to try to see how we
Yeah,
can.
agree,
to that
yeah.
Other tier, like
Yeah.
revenue, you know, I can see it's moving to tier 2, and then you want to jump to that tier 3, the $115.
Yeah.
one. That can be brought up with the tie downs and the boot hangers over there, and little increases with the current
Yeah,
hangers that pay airport lease to us.
yeah,
Would help us get to that sustainable tier
Yeah.
that we're looking for, without it being a triple for us. in the community.
yeah.
Um,
It would be nice, I think, to have those numbers that we
Yeah.
can share as we iterate on this.
There's
Get,
other hangers down with the
Yeah.
settlement too, I don't think you can pay the $50 a month. And so.
Yeah.
Being a commercial project, you might be able to get more of a commercial project than where that's personal project.
we have a committee that's gonna look
Yeah.
at it. We've got to get resolution
Yeah.
to that.
No, you're absolutely right. Those are things we as a board have control over, the hanger and the tie down fees. As you mentioned there, the technicalities legally and stuff with the one property, 300.
Right.
We looked into it last year and we got to find a different approach to do it, to try to get the money out of that.
Like the houses here, with the 120 houses, we're all paying commission. He's got, I don't know how many two hangers there is.
It's 12, yeah.
12 hangers, but all-
Yeah.
Are there separate lots?
No.
There's no key. Charlie and I own that. We don't own
Yeah.
any key.
It's a ground lease for the
Those are
hangers.
ground leases.
There's-
Those hangers are privately owned.
Again, by every individual that's in there, and I think you and Charlie should charge the required individuals $25 fee to have access to the airport.
That we could do. But what you were saying then, you can't do that.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what we'd like to
Yeah,
do,
there's-
is that you as an animal should say, hey, to be able to have access to the airport, this is a $25 fee, each one. And.
That,
or 50 or whatever.
That's an approach.
Whatever your church-
Yeah.
You add that on to a fee for them to have.
Yeah.
So your cost doesn't go up, it's their cost goes up. And if you want to raise hanging fees later for inflation, that 50 or whatever you agree to is back on top of it. With the waiting list and at the airport, for tie downs, like Steve said, I think there's enough to, you can raise it without worrying about losing tenants. If we do, there's plenty of.
Yeah.
This. The other thing I also wanted to bring up was, talking about widening the runway. Do we have enough space to approach it with the housing?
it-
I don't think we can go towards the taxiway side. We're gonna go towards
Yeah, that's the
outside.
problem
No,
with
we
the
don't.
tier three,
We
with
don't
defining
want
tier
that.
3.
I'm not talking about the cost. I'm talking about this ability
I
to do
know.
it.
yeah, we,
Like,
So
do
back
we
to
have-
Phil's
Yeah.
point
do we
of
have-
putting it up there,
I
should we
know, but
not
do we
even?
have
I
enough FAA space to run right to the fence or whatever?
Yeah.
I don't think we should get looked into that.
Yeah.
Unless they modify the requirements of the slope and all the crap that they've got up here.
Yeah,
It's-
I don't think, we looked at that a couple of years ago, several times, and there were all.
I think we
kinds
should
of
refine
plans
tier
parallel taxiways. It just doesn't
Okay.
fit. You can't even go
so,
wingtip to wingtip is what illegally injured, but if you put up, I don't know, Mike, you.
Yeah, that's right. The
Yeah.
airport is out of compliance right now. And we don't have enough horizontal real estate to make it in compliance.
Right.
It doesn't fit. The taxiway, runway, house, there's physically not enough.
And that's what I'm saying, we're talking about widening the runway.
well, so what we need to do is redefine that tier 3,
Yeah.
so it isn't a distraction.
Say-
You might have an argument.
Maybe-
You might have an argument for variance, if we're not in compliance now, and make the wide.
let me just say this, so before we get,
Yeah, we're going down a rat hole.
I don't want to get bogged down in tier 3.
Yeah, here's the point, I know, but tier 3 isn't gonna get passed, but,
That's, I want them. And then
Yeah.
my proposal to help subsidize.
we will refine the top tier and take
So-
anything out that is controversial, because
Tier-
it's not helpful.
Our going into this, the intent was, tier 3 was kind of always as a placeholder for improvements. The focus and what the committees and the board has
Yeah.
been doing is focusing on maintaining existing infrastructure.
Yeah,
So we were asked to kind of put down as kind of what does that kind of mean? We threw some things in there. It's not vetted at all. Yeah.
You know what would be better to put as an example on that tier 3 rather than a gate?
What's that?
One way we can't do it. Use that money to try to buy that lot while they are using.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no
well,
kidding.
Yeah,
You-
no, that's
buy-
right.
Buying back property.
That's the primary. That's primary.
That will actually
Yeah.
make it higher though, but.
Yeah,
yes,
because that
we
was-
thought about that.
There's a
I
whole,
like that.
I was gonna include that. You see it, when you see it in the model, it's blank,
Yeah.
because I don't know how to handle it, that's such a high
Yeah.
cost.
Just
That's a different arrangement.
I like that though. Okay.
So,
That's doable, but also we have that white mill road like out there that's not maybe tied down north. you can't push.
so I'm sorry, say
What
that?
was that?
There's a white mill,
The
white
guy
mill,
on the RV.
like going down-
Oh, no, yeah,
He's
that-
part of the
Yes, yeah.
RV. He's not paying title to the airport, he's not paying through the fence fees either, so he's basically using our airport.
Is he disabled? Is it?
No.
Oh, he does come out in and
I
out?
mean, so he's financed with it. And he's saying-
Well, what we can do is fence it off.
Well, it's, yeah, but basically.
He didn't want to pay title, so he's parking over there saying that for.
Well,
That's
we-
amazing.
we've got- we're gonna ask our
I-
council what to do about that, because he's not.
Yeah,
paying anything.
that we can deal with.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he's trespassing on the other guy's property.
One of the things you can do, and this is to help Mike out and help everybody out, each one of those 12 hangar owners over there should be getting a personal property tax bill every year from the county. You can take an assessment, $300 personal property tax. So they pay a personal property tax for each one of those hangars. It's a physical asset that the county can charge taxes on. I'm
Mhm.
sure they do.
Mhm.
So it's just like, if you have personal.
That's
property
interesting.
has a bunch of different definitions.
It's a
Yeah,
possessory.
so, but we lost.
It's called possessory tax.
Yeah.
It's called.
What's it called?
Possessory tax, not personal property, it's a possessory tax.
And that's a good-
Yeah, so that way, it's personal property
Yeah.
tax, have it put on the county rolls, to go to county, and have them put that $300 on their personal property tax, or $600 or whatever we come up with. And that will
Okay.
be the way for the airport to collect that money.
Yeah, I don't honestly know if the people that are doing on ground is, or leasing the ground. That's a good point. I don't know if they're paying. for-
Yeah, I mean, that's a good suggestion to check into that.
There should be,
Yeah.
there should be.
I think that's,
You had a question in the back and I.
yeah, Susan,
No,
yeah.
Are you sure? Because we kind of went off on a tangent.
Well, I think what's great is that everybody has some good ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I have some little tweak ideas.
We'd love that.
Put them in an email. But I think it's really important to bring things up so that everybody can think about the different options.
Yeah.
together, And then we can discover things that we hadn't thought of before.
Yeah.
And all of that. So I think that's really a great idea and a reason to have the more of these meetings as
mhm,
we go along, because people are gonna think of new ways
Right.
to try to make it work.
yeah,
But I think then to keep the meeting going, you need to say, okay, we got that, we have to have a list
You
on
need
the
a-
side.
yeah.
Thing that you can write it down so people can see that you took down their information, you took down. the
we need a
things.
whiteboard or something. I have a pad, but
Yeah, we're
yeah,
just
but
making-
we,
we're just making notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did, like, who had a great idea.
Yeah.
And whoever wants to be involved in helping get that idea fleshed out.
mhm.
So then we can milk the group for really
Yeah.
good stuff and then.
I'm all for that.
Move it. So that's-
Thank you.
Let me show you up,
Oh, Look at Terry, look at
This is-
Terry. All right, so if
I
anyone
know
can
this
read
is,
this, you.
this was not designed to be sanitary, but this is the model.
Look at this. Yeah.
So the model is constructed, and there's a whole calculation.
This is just the first page.
It is,
There's a
okay.
list of projects here.
If Rickler starts playing and not.
Okay.
Hey,
Terry, you're gonna get 5 minutes on this. Because people can't see it.
This is for the airport on the streets, it's a separate one. There's a list of projects here. We put in what, based on what we think is the base cost of that, what year dollars those are based on. Models, any model's only good as the information went into it, but there's a lot of information was developed 2 years ago. Go through, is that eligible for, 10% match? Most of the airport stuff is, that's what our belief is. Then to go through and decide when we start saving for that and when we spend that money. Final but this won't show up on the chart. Then the years you amortize that, it's playing with it. Now, maintenance kind of has to be done within a certain time, but we're not experts on it. We take a guess. But in this particular model right here, we assume no new special tax for the airport, so it stays at $25. Then there's a summary here to say what the annual income. You can't quite see the numbers, but red is
You can
bad.
see the red.
The expenses, including expenses that to operate the airport, not including fuel, because the fuel expenses are very big and they get offset by the sales. The red then says total income minus expenses. So you see there's red here right away. At 2.5%, assuming 2.5% inflation, and we know what the inflation is going nowadays. But it's not the inflation in operating costs, but we're assuming that we're increasing the hangar income and the tie downs by 2.5% a year on average. This is based on some starting numbers, what we have in our current checking account. In this case, we're starting at $130,000. We have a reserve restricted maintenance account, which by the way happens to be tied in when we talk about tier 2. Tier 2 is maintain existing infrastructure. We're treating this as a restricted reserve account, as that is the tier 2 money. If we get new money, it goes in that restricted account because it feeds the tier 2 programs. That's one that I would track where that one's going. It doesn't go into the day-to-day operations, at least not yet. But what happens in this particular case, 2.5% inflation for cost and income, but no new special tax. You have the graph, it looks like this. The red line is our total checking and reserve account. This is the cash. So we take our restricted reserve account, which the model is assuming about $25,000. And the operating costs are paid out of the checking account. But as time goes on, because of inflation, we run out of cash, basically 2020, 2033. That's the glide slope we're on right now.
Yeah.
And this is why we're doing this. If you assume 5%, that obviously gets much worse. The 5% just is, with current inflation, we're about 7-8%. We're assuming that's going to not be that bad long. But then we start running out of money. You see this chart. This is our reserve account. It starts going down, down, down because we have to pull money. Yeah, we're pulling it out for we're pulling this. In this case, we're pulling money out of the reserve account because we're trying to maintain our checking account of $100,000. Pretty soon the reserve is gone, we have to dip into our checking account, and that disappears in 2029. That's fundamentally why we're here. And this is no projects, no maintaining infrastructure. This is just day-to-day operations. So this is what's driving us for the airport. Now, the argument says, okay, with this, and what's the shape? The other part side of it, you're not taking care of the runway, you're not taking care of anything, you're not doing the fuel upgrade. It's probably not much of an airport out this time frame. That's fundamentally what we're doing. So the numbers. Now, people want to help them check the math, more than welcome to it, and all the assumptions that went into it. But
Everybody's going, no.
But we need to do all these income and got some great ideas in checking the 12 hangars. That's what $3,000 some dollars. You can see these are small numbers here. Every bit helps, of course.
Yeah.
But as we proceed on here, I'm going to just jump to. This is and so how do things look if I'm just going to pick on the $25 one. This is how the model looks if we put $25 in. So the whole airport is now $50 a month. So it goes from $300 to $600 per year. This case, there's green, that means yes, we're doing the airport layout plan. That is the gateway toward getting funding from the FAA and Caltrain. You got to have an airport layout plan. That's the first thing you have to do. So we do that. We've got slurry seals for the runway, and 2 up here, and some resurfacing based on the old numbers. $25 a month that allows us to at least run through 2038 based on these costs at 2.5% inflation. That's sort of the difference in it. So the chart wise looks like this. You see, even in this model, starting around 2030, we're starting to run a deficit. This is income minus expenses. So we're spending more than we're taking in because we're spending on projects. But it's on, even then, it's on a slow decline to finally 2049, we're not reserves. That's a long time from now. Depending on you think that's the next, that's 3 generations of warrants issue to deal with. But here's what it looks like. This is, again, the red is total cash reserves and funding. We dip down to almost out. So at the end of 2042, we've got $8,000 left total money in to 2042. So that's not much.
So the $25 one, we said it gets us our infrastructure plan, which enables us to have FAA look at us for grants. If we increase it by $25. So doesn't that change your projections here, because we have taking money from Caltrans, that they do some of these projects?
No, this just, the way this calculates the cost, this is the cost that we have to put forward. So the model, it doesn't show the total, we're not paying the total cost of the program and getting reimbursed. But the model assumes that airport layout.
So the $25 does take us to tier 2.
10%.
This is tier 2.
This is tier 2.
Right, right, I'm just saying, so tier 2, I guess is the point where we
It does.
get grants from FAA.
It does.
Right.
So doesn't that change our projection on as far as maintaining the airport, what it's actually gonna cost us? Because
You're
It does.
asking matching funds or.
It does. It helps significantly. It does
Yeah.
help.
Yes,
So-
yeah. This is, we're paying 10% of those total costs.
Right.
That's so
Is
that's
that
what
is
the
that
cost
what you're showing us, with 10% of the cost of doing what we get to the airport? Or is your graph showing us paying 100%? of the
No,
cost?
10%.
Yeah, it's a 10%.
10%.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, otherwise the numbers is.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's-
It's not
That's
doable.
what really distinguishes the airport from the streets from financially.
yeah.
We can get 10%. I mean, we're going as thinking for maintaining existing infrastructure. We can get 10% either through the FAA. We get 90% of say through the FAA or Caltrans.
Yeah.
Caltrans, I understand, pay for the slurry seal of runway. Caltrans did, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that we're gonna get 90% of that paid for by somebody else. Streets is a whole different thing. We have, that's 100% of us. Streets are the most expensive thing we have. Susan.
That's what my question is about. And I'm not remembering well enough. So the streets, the neighborhood is different from the airport. These charts are talking about airport.
This is airport only, correct?
Okay, so does tier 2, tier 3, have you thought about having some of the options in those be paying more, going more into the streets? Because
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
it does.
25 or 50.
Yeah.
They do include the streets. I think we talked past each other there. So what
Oh,
he was
yeah.
showing now was just the airport, but my charts have both,
Right, her charts had,
had both options in
See,
there, right? I'm sorry, say that again.
Did it have a higher increase in the streets? Because,
It did.
okay, good.
It did. It was 65, let's see. Yes, we had,
let me show that.
And do we, I don't even.
$65, like for example, in the tier, when we bring them both to tier 2, $65 goes to the streets and 25 go to the airport. So yeah, so
Is
it's,
that
that's-
percentage disposition mandated by the natures of the propositions? Is it saying X percent has to go here and X percent?
that's to be determined. That's how we did it, but
That's how I did. That's
it's
what-
obviously up for discussion. We can change the,
Could there be an advantage leverage into splitting it into 2 propositions? Yes.
You think?
Could be, yeah, I mean, we can, there's a
I have a few
possibility.
more thoughts on that I want to.
Yeah.
maybe.
We just talked about the streets, there's a comparable model for street things, which is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the,
Streets, we don't get 10%, so the cost here, the cost that we use the model, for example, resurfacing, start saving for in 2029. And reason why the different numbers is because we went through and tried a while ago, this gets plotted out on it. And I can't see the numbers, but the street resurfacing, for example, is here, save, spend in green. So by adjusting the amount of time, a little bit of optimization, trying to get the lowest per month cost out of it, by playing with the numbers when you start savings, so you don't bunch up a bunch of spending on one time here, the savings associated with that. That's at least a thinking and why they will start at different times. So then for the streets, let's go down here. What we're assuming for the streets is a street resurfacing in 2042. So it's a ways away. We don't know what that would look like, but for planning purposes and looking that far out, and what we're necessarily talking about, we're not trying to necessarily cover something that far out in time, but it's to kind of get an idea of what it is. But we do have a slurry seal that we was recommended we do in the next couple of years in the streets, and you can see the streets are gradually cracking more and more and more. We need to preserve the life of the streets. We need to put a seal on it. So the numbers I used for that one is what actually Phil came up with. I'm just assuming $200,000. It's a basic seal. Apparently the higher grade seal would be almost double that. We can't, it's very difficult.
No, that's the high grade seal.
It's a high grade seal.
That's the high grade seal.
So, well, for the next one, I assume the 368, that was the numbers we have before. So maybe too much. But anyway, slurry seal 1, say occurs in 2025. That's not very long from now. The measure passes, we don't see the money until well into 2023. So it's not very much time. And that's what drives a lot of the street numbers here. Even if we move it out to 2026, it gives an extra year. It takes some pressure off of that. But that's a year longer with the streets without the seal.
Does that have to be another bond, Terry?
What's that?
Does that have to be another bond at this point?
No, not necessarily, because it's a total cost. Again, this is 2.5% inflation, so the number used here in the calculations is about $231,000. So that has savings starting in 2023, save for 3 years, spend it in the third year.
What do you have in the model here, Terry? What number? For assessment, what number are you?
Oh, this is $25.
$25.
It's $25.
So what you're saying is this $25 a month will cover our slurry seal
It covers
in what year?
2025.
2025.
Well, I'm sorry, not quite, we're still 50,000, I'm sorry, it doesn't cover.
And is,
$50,000.
okay,
It's
so
close,
that's
but we're 50,000.
3 years from now, and that is the recommended.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't, so this case, yeah, the slurry seal at $25 doesn't quite cover, this says we're about close to $16,000 short. You can move it out a year and then it takes care of it. Accumulate up.
So about a year ago, I offered, I guess what would be considered tier 1 plan that somehow has gotten buried for a year. But I wanted to let the folks know kind of what my plan was, and so they got some idea. So my plan is to double the current fees, go from $300 to $600 each. Yes. And then also a $2,000 one-time fee per lot, which would give us $240,000 after the next election. With that, that will cover the slurry seal on the streets and give us a $40,000 buffer. Also, it'll take and allow us to get an additional $37,000 per year to put into the kitty for the next slurry seal that will be coming up in a few years. And that will take in, we'll have enough money put away by that time for the streets. Additionally, by that time, the $1,000 bond that we're paying every year currently for the streets, so it's kind of an ill-fated thing, will be gone, and then we'll have money. People have that $1,000 that they're paying now, or 900 or whatever it is, to be able to take and put that towards other improvements. Some of the folks have come to me, and because they said, well, you're not ready to talk, and I said, they're concerned about what's happened in the past. And so I don't have any fancy charts or stuff. I use the envelope my water bill came around on some of the things that we wasted money in the past. So we lost $100,000 plus on the airport layout plan back when Tanger and Vail were here. So that was 100,000, kind of right down the drain. We're going to have problems with the FAA asking for more money, another 90% for another airport layout plan when we threw away the last one. The airport streets here, when we had the expert committee said, do not do that. Do a slurry seal. And because it's just gonna crack up the roads again, that's what's happened, that it's cracked up, we spent $1.4 million on that. The non-existent tractor that we spent $10,000 on fairly recently. Was,
We didn't actually spend the money on the tractor.
no, this is another tractor.
Oh, it's another one.
This is another
Sorry.
tractor that we did spend $10,000 on before.
So just, you got a list of bad things, bad decisions in the
Well, I
past.
think that people should listen.
Okay.
Instead of, I think it should get out.
But I'm looking for solutions.
I understand, but we have to take, if you go to the bank and go, don't worry about the $1.7 million we threw away in recent past. Because we're gonna look for something ahead. So we threw away 10 grand on a tractor that didn't exist.
Yeah.
We bought a tractor on the internet that never existed. It was $10,000 that we spent.
When was that?
That was about 4 years ago. So we bought a tractor on the internet that didn't exist. We paid for it on the internet, $10,000, and we lost payment of the airport. Well,
Phil?
If this list is 5 items long or 100 items long, I can see the point that there's been money spent. I don't know that we need to.
So I don't want, right, I don't want to hide what we've done in the past from the public. And I think that we
No.
should take,
It's a matter of public.
Was that this board?
yeah, no, a different board, but we've had, I mean, the board only lasts 3 or 4 years and then it goes on, but this is over a long period of time. So then we bought that $3,000 tractor that we couldn't legally run. And then we spent a couple $1,000s on a gate up there, but there's a gate 100 yards from it. That when we didn't have any money. Then we took.
Well,
and $5,000.
Those particular things can be challenged on gates on private
I
property.
didn't interrupt you, I'm asking you not to
Okay.
interrupt me.
Okay,
I think that's fair.
that's fair. Go ahead.
So we did a fuel engineering study recently for $5,000, and I think this was this board that approved that.
Mhm.
That they came back for $750,000 for a fuel tank. $5 grand more down the toilet. Let's see, I think it was a passport that spent $2,000 to have the wind fees busted. We could just put new metal on for about a quarter of the price. We bought a $12,000 gator. That for the last airport manager. And right after we bought it, he left. So these are things that we've spent, comes over like 1.7 million. And I'm bringing this up because other people have come to me and said, hey, what's going on? So I think that we should take and be somewhat cautious of the monies we approve and how they're spent. And especially now what's going on in the world. We're gonna have $7 a gallon of gas next week.
It's already there.
You know,
How do you
your
do it?
proposal.
So my proposal is let's double the fees. I agree with you that $300 today isn't what $300 was back in 1995. I agree with you. And I think that we'll get that passed. I also think that if we do the $2,000 one-time assessment, will cover all the roads in here. That's a big thing that we want to do. And I think that will pass, because that only needs 51%, not the 67% super majority. And I think that will pass. And then I think by the time that that money is used, we will take it to the point where that $900 or $1,000 a year will have expired. And we'll be able to take and go back to the homeowners here and ask them, hey, this is how we've spent money. This is how we've taken and used your money. Now, can you trust us that they can do this and this, and this is what we're gonna do with the property? Thank you.
Your proposal is actually in here. It's the deferral proposal.
Been in there for a year.
But it's in the presentation. I just didn't
Right,
call
it
it Phil's
just-
proposal, but
Right.
it's in
I
here.
don't think that you put the $2,000.
It's on, it is on one of the pages. We can add it as part of it. So,
You can share. it.
yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
not sharing. So, let me see. The,
Fuel system,
the problem, yeah, it doesn't
Okay, so
address the airport. His-
since you
right.
asked, I have found a used 12,000-gallon Conwall tank.
Let me see where it is.
And I'm working with Hunt Brothers, one of the largest fuel suppliers here in California. And they're willing to take, and they've given us a price for the tank of 15,000. And excluding the concrete work, which is pretty extensive. It's, they have to put an 18-inch pad in to support the tank. The tank without fuel in it is 103,000.
Okay.
So I think we can get that done for $120,000.
Okay,
And they have a place that we can take and go and finance it 100%.
so
So I've already presented that to the board.
So Phil is talking about this proposal. He is a supporter of the deferral. You've got, and here's an option, adding the 2,000, one time he makes the streets sustainable. It does, it defers the airport for 4 to 7 years, so that's what that does. Thank you. Do we have any other comments, thoughts? Mike, go.
One other income source, this is my idea, but I think is a transfer tax. In a lot of communities in California use it supposedly.
Yeah.
What it is when you sell your house, the buyer pays the tax. And it's typically, I think, 1 or 2%. So that's $10,000.
Does that stay in the community or go to the county?
Straight to us.
No?
To be used in streets or airport or however we defined as a.
Might be big input on that one, but that also covers inheritance. If someone wanted to pass the property down through an inheritance rather than just a straight out sale.
Are you asking?
Yeah, do you know?
I have no idea. And I might ask, realtor, what's the gross sales there at? 5 million or so?
Yeah, right around there, and 1% tax doesn't have to be paid by either side, you can write it in the contract, whatever's what you want to do. The realtor pays the fees for that. You know, if I sold a house, I would eat the fees here, just so we keep the airport going. You know, we
Yeah, but
certainly-
you're a pilot and you want it.
Well,
to
exactly,
stay.
well, I
That's
want
the
to put
problem.
property values also.
Yeah.
You know, we lose the fuel, we lose these taxiways, this place will go down, you ever been to Brownsville up there?
Okay.
Yeah, it's just awful.
Yeah.
And I want to add, the Pine Mountain Airport pays about $335 a month to be on the airport there. If you own a home there, it's $335 a month. It's not $115, it's $335 a month. And they don't have money to take care of their taxiways the way it's sitting right now. Half the taxiway, you can't bring the airplane down the road. So we got a very special place. And I think we can do, not the top tier, I think that's money in the water. The tier 2, I think we can maybe get that sold. I think that would be the best way to do
A
it.
combination of that, what Phil's talking about, one-time assessment.
This should generate.
Just to generate.
But again, one of the biggest problems we've had, I don't always agree with you, but is that the total misuse. And in some places, it was just dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And some places, it wasn't proper research. We might want to think about having a committee of elders, call them whatever.
Yeah.
To that would include you.
Is there an age requirement?
But they would be, they would kind of be a prop on a harebrained idea that Brinkman's got to put a 2-level taxiway, so you do, need,
Yeah.
I think.
Is there a process that we could do?
Well,
Well,
we have an infrastructure committee.
Right.
Yeah. So we,
I would
that's what
call
that's.
it
What it's
Supposed to be for, yeah.
So we do have something existing kind of process for that now. It's the infrastructure and finance committee, which Phil goes to a lot. And we started that up a year ago or 2 years ago. But that committee is a standing committee. It's intended to make recommendations to the board. Unfortunately, we only get about 2 or 3 people show up. Phil's on there most of the time. That's the opportunity to do this because to your point, we got 5 board members here. We're all volunteers. We're residents here. We have our motivations because we want to live here. This is our place. I tend to be here a long, long time. So it kind of comes up and got to do it. This is the government.
Going to give the outsiders
Yeah.
who have problems with inside of the board. It's gonna be a kind of because you want people.
Would they come?
like us
Yeah, but the
to
problem-
live here.
I know, I absolutely agree, and that's absolutely what we want. And we're appeal to people to take part and participate in those things. But when we get 3 people show up at a
The
meeting.
reality is, even at these meetings, 90% of people have never been to one of these.
Right,
meetings.
Yeah.
exactly. And you guys are great
I mean,
here.
they're
It's,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Susan?
You might, one thing about that is you guys, you board members, although it's more to do, might want to do a little walk around the, take the next month or so to walk around and knock on doors and just talk to people for a while. And one of the things to do is let them know how they can find out, how they can
Yeah.
get involved, what options are there, because, I mean, I don't.
Or it could be outsiders that would help you with that.
Yeah.
That somebody, yeah, but it's gotta be somebody
Right.
like Phil or Mike that has the ability to talk to them at an intelligence level that can help them learn.
Or just helping them understand the structure of what's going on, because we get emails from you guys that say there's a meeting coming up. Okay, I get a lot of emails.
Yeah.
I don't own a plane, so, I don't have the same level of interest. So I'm not opening all those emails. And so, but if somebody came and talked to me or called me up and said, if I come in the next week, can you give me 30 minutes so we can just talk about what the structure is going on here?
Good,
So
yeah,
that
for the next
we can make, because we have very important decisions coming.
Yeah.
You could carry that chart right there.
Yeah, they throw you out.
No, seriously, just say, this is what we're talking about, and since not everybody can make the meeting, we're
Yeah.
bringing it to you.
Yeah.
But when you get the phone call, if they speak Chinese, you better.
Well, no, it's a very good idea. We mentioned before, we got 4 of these kind of information meetings planned, and we could do that to get more people. We do get about between 50 and 60 of the mails are actually opened up. It's not very good, yeah.
Just one other thing, if you're taking your tier 3, and I know that we're not gonna do that, but just if you take your tier 3, to give you guys a little bit more, I don't know, reality, or when you're talking to people, currently, if we went to that, it'd be about $5,000 per lawn per year.
Mhm.
And I just don't believe that anybody here can spend it.
And that really, we
Yeah,
didn't think
that's-
so.
that's
either.
why-
I wouldn't try and.
We're not trying
We're
to
not.
sell that, Phil. We're not
We're
trying to
not-
sell
we're
it.
Slowly,
We-
you'd be surprised what you could get.
But, it also helps to show a range, to show where we're at, and there's,
Yeah,
we have no expectations of that being.
The focus is said where it's maintaining existing infrastructure.
Yeah,
And so we're only focusing tier
On
2.
the last vote, that is what got a lot of people. No, I'm not interested. I don't want to hear anymore. I'm just gonna vote no. So that's the reason I'm bringing it up, because a lot of people, when they, they wanted to increase the airport manager's salary by 40%.
yeah,
And that's pretty much a known fact. And a lot of people got turned off by it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take and put something up there that you really don't believe.
Yeah.
Did we write down the note about the transfer tax?
we did.
Yeah.
We have a transfer tax note.
Yeah, I think kind of to Phil's point, if it's not something we're gonna have concrete examples in there that are viable, just get rid of it, because it just confuses it.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Because
good.
it gives somebody that is looking for a reason not to vote for it. It gives them a reason. It's like they want to shoot for this tier 3 thing.
Right,
Where if we stick in tier 1, tier 2, we're looking at survival of the airport.
We're just trying to
The airport,
survive.
Also, a river.
It's no fluff, no junk. It's just trying to keep the streets paved and the airport open. And if we look at those red lines that are, underwater in 4 years that kind of brings it home. It's like, we're gonna be, looking at being bankrupt in 4 years if we don't do something.
yeah.
My main thing is, we moved here for the community, yes, for the airport, whether you have an airplane or a boat in your hangar, or you have cars. That's all something that no other neighborhood around here has. And if you were to store those items anywhere else, the cost of that, or even just going out for dinner is gonna cost you $75 these days. So.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, I've heard people, boats, the slips are like thousands of dollars per month. So, you know, and we've all got, everybody's got boats, motorhomes, special cars. and-
We're a community of toys.
We are a community of toys. We love our toys.
There's only two houses here.
You have more toys than anybody.
When we bought that bigger, we needed a bigger.
It's balancing, you know, there's Starbucks will cost you so much a month. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I don't feel we should nickel and dime our community.
It's the way you're presented and talk about food. water.
Yeah, but a pilot will spend $1 to save a dime. So, you know, you gotta. look at that.
That's a good point.
You stole it.
To do the $100 hamburger, we don't want to do the $50 street.
And they live in a beautiful gated community down the lake, which is gorgeous, and he pays, he has a motorhome and a boat, and he pays $625 a month to store the two of them. Because you can't put them in his driveway.
Yeah.
We can, right? We can, and so she brings up a
Yeah.
valid point.
What is the rental?
We're not even paying close to $625 a month, folks.
I know.
I mean, not that we want to, but that's what
Yeah.
we're paying. to
Yeah, but
store.
you gotta convince the few knotheads in this community that
Yeah.
you need to pay.
I think I'd go with $89 instead of the 90, that sounds a lot cheaper.
It's funny. You know, it's funny. I think we and but wait, there's more. You get your $89.95.
Susan again.
Send the kids some nice.
There being a lot of money spent, that you weren't really thinking about. I'll remind people, and some of you are new, when we did do the streets, then a $14,000 lien got put on my house, and I've been paying it off in my taxes every year, right? So when I finally sort of went back and saw, because for a while I thought, I won't be here that long, my pilot's gone, you know, so I won't be here the whole time, so I'll just go along with paying a little bit at a time. Well, when we were talking about all of this 2 years ago, I went and looked to see how much I had already paid of that 14,000. I had already paid 17,000. And it wasn't gonna be done until like 29, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm paying interest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're paying interest. I mean, it might have cost 1.4 million to do those, but when you run that out to 29, you're gonna pay double what that original 14,000 said. So I turned around during that time 2 years ago, and I paid off I still owed I can't remember the number, but I still owed $4,000 or $6,000, you know, out of paying for 15 years or 10 years, whatever it's been already. And so I actually figured it out that I'm saving myself now $3,000 or $4,000 by having paid it off. So if you guys want to
Yeah.
look at that, pay it off. You know, and-
Yeah, we gotta-
and speaking to Phil's idea of putting money ahead into I think we have for the roads, I think that is a really important thing. I walked the neighborhood and talked to people about the last proposition, or assessment, whatever we're calling it. And a number of people were like, well, I don't want to pay for the roads, we'll just wait until they get a new bond, and then, you know, and it's like, well, okay, so then everybody who's living and using up the roads isn't gonna be paying, you know, they don't want to pay for it, but then the next people who do get it, like when I moved in and ended up with the assessment, that's paying a whole lot more. It's not just paying for what it was, it's paying all that extra, right?
Yeah.
So I really think it's valuable to set the money aside and start making interest on that money.
Right.
When we get to the point, because if it cost us 1.4 10 years ago, how many millions is it gonna cost to do it in
And
20
with-
or in 42, or even when that.
With oil
gets-
prices, which can
Yeah,
drastically
I mean,
affect it.
It's that
Yeah.
dollar cost averaging of putting your money away early. And I think we really, really need to find a way to educate people about how money accumulates or doesn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's gonna make it work for us in the long run. And that it is being a neighbor, being a part of this community is paying for the services you get. And we're using those roads every day. So I don't think any kind of put it down the line and get the money later is a valuable way to go.
And tier two will avoid that, right?
Tier 2 avoids that to be able to do the slurry seals
Without another bond.
without another bond.
Without a bond, what's gonna happen if we have to borrow $135,000 for the fuel system?
That's self-sustaining.
That's gonna be self-sustaining,
Well-
so we have paid out the profit for the fuel.
And
Well-
the saving of the cost, the insurance, and some of
maintenance
the.
of the-
It's not,
Still fill the tank with concrete or-
it's not quite. Right?
No, it's gonna come out. I was able to find someone who's willing
So,
to take the tank instead of us having to take and get rid of it as hazardous waste. They're willing to take the tank and take the crane. So that saves us about $30,000.
Phil came up as it could be a really low-cost way to replace the fuel system. There's two things, why aren't we doing anything right now on it? One, we got to make sure we have money to pay for it, which is what this presentation is about. Plus two, as Phil also pointed out, when we had our ad hoc committee on the fuel, really, you got to verify what life is left in the fuel tank we have in the ground. We're concerned because it's beyond the 30 years, but is a real life, could be 60 years. If we can defer replacing it for a number of years, because the risk is still low, we think it's high, but it may be low. We're going through trying to verify that, to kick that down. We want to spend money wisely.
Yeah.
But one, we got to make sure we got money to do it, to pay for it. Yeah,
Yes.
but
So the county allocation should be $13,000.
well, let's speak, this is, do you know more how that's set up?
Well, I talked to the assessor's office, and apparently the county collects so much money for property taxes, and each special district get a certain percentage of that, or slice of that pie. In order for us to get more, then Cameron Park Community Services District would have to give up something, or the fire district, or the, is at least to the way. So they,
Haven't they taken a lot of money from the county during the year?
second is,
Education revenue augmentation?
well, I think that's dictated by the state, how much of the property tax that goes to education. It's like 25% or something like that, right? So those, yeah, it's probably higher, but so I think that the way that pie gets divided up is already determined, right? And in order for us to get more, somebody has to get less, right? Like,
The county used to reimburse us for lost money on that allocation. That should be about $40,000.
Is that before the district was formed?
What's that?
That's before the district, because there was
No, they
some,
gave a lot of that money away when they formed the district.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
no, the way the initial inputs and the disputes and the petty arguments we got into. This, I was not quite here, I came in just at the end of that, and a lot of the infighting that took place because they wanted to create the district that gave the county the ability to keep a bunch of the money. And so we lost that ability.
It was you after took the money.
Well, that I don't know about. I just know that,
That's where it goes.
yeah.
It goes to you after, goes to school.
I guess part of the question is how did that allocation get established, that percentage that we get? And, what's that based off?
according to what they told me was the state decides that, it's not the county that decides how to money. Like that. We had like 100 special districts in the county, right? And each one needs to put the fire.
But it's not proportional, I mean, it's proportional to the income or to the size of the district, or they're all the same.
If you look it up, actually, if you go to Eldorado County, they have what each special district gets and how it's determined each year. So it's pretty clear. It's right there available for everybody to look at. And we get about the 14,000 each year, and this year it might go down because the property tax is going down because of the fires. They guess they're not gonna,
Have we heard anything on the 10,000 from Caltrans?
not yet.
We get $10,000 a year from Caltrans for the airport.
Yeah. At least
Which
we
is,
have so far.
yeah.
And then every airport gets that.
We've had to mention, one reason we're as good as condition as we are because we got $75,000 money, $75,000 basically as a result of COVID. That really helped us out. Otherwise, that red line would be several years earlier.
Terry, since we're talking money, let me ask you a question. The number of meetings back, when we were talking about the flight school delayed, the electronics,
Right.
Wi-Fi, fire extinguishers, whatever we're talking about. We talked about a mechanism where money can be donated to the airport.
Yes.
In a legal, on above board, nobody do anything funny way. Does anything progress with that? The reason I asked that question is I will not name him, there's an individual on this airport that I have sat with on 100 occasions and said, if you guys would just tell me what you gave, I'll write the check. If it's 100 grand, I'll write the check, just to keep the airport going. But you got to tell me that it's got to be an above board method that I can take it off on my end. Has anything progress? Is there any progress on it?
It's foundation.
It's, but you should say that I was working on the name today. We're trying to establish a 501c3, at least I'm trying to do that. So it's not only a nonprofit, but it's also tax deductible for whoever puts money in it, and we can apply for matching grant from like Intel Corporation.
No, I vote all right, Chuck. I can't write that.
So the process has started, right? So what we're trying to do is create a 501c3 Cameron Park Airport. It's dedicated to the airport, right? It's not going to go to the street because.
Okay, that's fine. And in this case, that would be
Purely airport.
But I'm telling you right now, if you said, we've got this fuel system lined up, we can do this, we're 50 grand short. You
Boca
have that
can
check in
do
your
it.
hand by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And I'll guarantee that would happen. But it's got to have the mechanism to do it.
Well,
It
That'll
isn't,
be your first call.
And that's.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking at your person, not this free money.
the 501c, yeah, the 501c3 is something that's very doable. I did one time last year.
So,
no, it's definitely doable, and FOCA is a 501c4, so it's not tax deductible,
Correct.
whatever you give to them. So it is, important. You can beat me up if it doesn't, but I'm sure that's a long process.
we'll let me know when it's done, and I'll make the introduction.
Maybe we could encourage people in the airport, if they're working for companies that have benefit programs with matching funds for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I still think we need to, people need to contribute to
That'll be a
it.
new subject.
I honestly, I honestly, in all honesty, will have all of the sea level guys on the airplane tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And we're in the development business. If we have a mechanism, we have a free jet, I can probably have another jet.
No, that's wonderful. Let's get it moving.
I should, EA chapter 512, Fosterville does that, and I happen to know her. She can.
Yeah, I think that's.
They do that.
We do it.
Is there anyone on,
I agree with you.
Yeah, that's right.
But I
That
don't think we
wants
need
to
have
talk that's
everybody
on, line?
contribute to the maintenance of the airport.
Oh, I agree, absolutely.
So, whatever's.
It's not exactly the same
Well,
way as
sir.
501c3, but maybe if we're talking about, for example, the bonds.
Except for
is there
them.
a way someone said, hey, I want to put money in now, rather than get stuck with interest on a bond, 10 years, 20 years later, to put it in money now, and it's somewhat financially advantageous for them to do so.
We should check to see if, I'm sorry, we should check to see if the folks online have any comments. Anybody online on Zoom, any comments? Don't hear any so far, and I see everybody's still muted. So folks online, if you have any comments, you can also give us a call or send them in writing emails to the airport manager. With that, I think we've had a very good discussion here.
Yeah, I think so.
So what we'd like to do is just kind of give an idea where everybody is. So what we thought we'd do is we're going to hand out some little pieces of paper. If you want to show that chart on your,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
I think everybody here is in favor of it, so I don't think.
Yeah, well-
anything else.
Well, kind of what structure is, I think, still to be determined.
It's the dollar.
Yeah. Do you have the letters on there or should I can show mine?
You can show yours.
Okay.
then. Go
You can
ahead.
stop sharing. Oh, I can share. Okay. So using the letters here. We're trying to see if this works. Do you know? Oh, ABC, I'm sorry. This is the content from Diane's chart with the letters on the bottom. We're gonna do a little secret value here. E, I don't particularly like, because of all the reasons we talked about, I want to take that off. So that maybe just focus on A, B, you know, A through D, or a write-in candidate.
Or yeah, alter it, say, I like this one, but hey, if we did something else.
Coordination for along, just let everyone know whether or not these results are, when these results are going to be tallied and if they will be kept to the board or what will be done with them. What will be done with the results?
Oh, we're gonna try to.
It's just to give us an idea of take the pulse of the people here and.
Does anybody need a pen?
This is kind of a short.
It's gonna like test it out. See if we are.
Yeah, I think we can do it too, yeah.
Everybody vote for A.
Secret, this is like the secret stronghold.
Is there a bucket
Yeah.
or ballot
Bucket.
box there?
This is an official collection box. courtesy of Amazon. Everybody ready?
Collection plate church. Pass the
Any others? Okay.
That's in the front.
Here? Julie?
You got a question here?
So what was the proposal 2 years ago was for how much?
$75, which 50 to the airport. Yeah, it's
C plus.
with 50 to the airport and 25 to the streets. Yeah.
In addition to the.
And so in the addition to the 25, yeah.
So that would actually be the 9. Oh, awesome.
While we're waiting for the results here, I want to do a little advertising here. CPAD board members, you said this is our local government, a special district, so forth. We have one paid employee down, and the rest of us are all volunteers in this. But as you know, there's a whole bunch of volunteers here that take care of the grass and doing the minor repairs and fixing as much as we can. And that's one reason we get saving a lot of money on this, and we've been accumulating money here thanks to our, even though we still have things to fix and obstruction mitigation things to go through. The board of directors, I'm gonna make sure the board gets out early, is that this community is run by the board. Yeah, the district is responsible for street maintenance. Just to be real clear, the district does not take care of the CCNR or worry about color, you know, like that's the Cameron Park Service District. So the district is responsible for maintenance of the street and the operation of the airport. So board members serve four-year terms. Elections are staggered on even years. So we have actually 3 seats opening up in November. Don't know necessarily the board members will run again. But no, this coming November general election and then 2 seats opening up the 24th. For this November, one of those seats, I know is Diane, because she took over Burl's term for Gary's on. And I think the other one is your seat and Glenn's seat coming up. So they've been serving this year 4 years, doing a great job. The best thing we could do to get the best results for the community here is hopefully get more than one person per open seat. have an election. I think Jeff and I ran last year or 2 years ago now. Yeah, we actually had 3 people for 2 seats. Good. Wow. Back out.
Yeah.
As you see what goes on here, this is the board oversees things. Phil's got a lot of ideas. You should run for the board. You run for the board.
Been there, done that.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Lots of opportunities to shape our future to keep the district functional. Yeah, as such, I said, it's a special district, so essentially we're under government officials. I don't think anybody here is aspiring to be president or anything like that here. The schedule for getting on the ballot for the ballot for the boards, it just goes to our community here. They haven't actually released it yet, but based on what happened in 2020, they start making the forms for candidacy available about mid-July, and then they have to be completed and filled out. It's just a series of forms saying your conflict of interest type stuff. Then you can, as an option, write up a little, think about yourself and see in the ballots description. But that's roughly kind of to make the decision to kind of start getting to roughly the mid-July timeframe, complete the forms in early August. Then you just kind of wait for the November election. So I have the results of the poll. Here. And Jimmy, we flip back to them so we can remember what they were. So please think about becoming part of the board running.
Were there online votes?
What's that?
Online votes are in the emails?
Oh, I have not. Yeah, we've got,
You can publish the results.
yeah, I mean, this is a straw poll. Okay, it's supposed to be secret here, so. So A, here's the thing, so starting from the lowest one, A, 0. B, 1, C, 2, D, 13. So that's a winner here for C. And even though we didn't really request it, one person voted for E down here with a 2 or 3. So of this room, the consensus kind of says it's more if you both the streets and the airport in tier 2, you take care of the streets. And that's all we have for this. This is, I think, I really appreciate you coming here because it helps us, because sometimes we worry about we're operating here in the blind, and these type of meetings, we discuss it at the board meetings, but to have this type of format has been very helpful. And it'll take us with the ideas that we discussed here, go forward and make some changes on it. So we have 3 more of these meetings. So I encourage you to come then. You may think of something else and engage in the discussion. Are there any last minute comments from?
Yeah, I mean, some of the ideas, like when things go or something, just publish that and say, meeting notice.
We have to put it, we have to put minutes out for that.
Right, but I mean, email that to every resident. So they can see what some of the.
Yes.
I have a suggestion. I don't know everybody's name I'm looking at here. And you guys are an official board. Don't you want your little government plaques with the names on?
We should do like the city council meetings or something like that, yeah.
Oh, little tents.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I belong to a number of nonprofit groups and such. And a lot of times the president and the elected people, they are dealing with all the issues and they have a little meeting before somebody makes a spectacular presentation about some fun thing, right? They have a little business meeting and they're talking to the group. And they always want more people to come to the meetings. Well, the group that knows what's going on, they sort of talk in their acronyms and they say, oh yeah, John did that. But if you're coming there only 3 times a year to one of the meetings, you don't know who John is.
Right.
You don't know what that acronym means. It's very difficult to know everything that's going on and then talk to the rest of the people and keep them engaged, because you know so much, you don't know what we don't know. And starting with names, because if this is my first CPAD meeting ever, I've lived here for 1, 2 years.
Who are you?
Well, not everybody knows me. I'm Susan Levitsky. I live down at the corner of at the North Gate. You go around my house.
Yeah.
And there's like, there you go. But so that means really maybe have name tags, for people when they come in the door.
That's very good,
We
yeah.
want to create more community, and
Exactly.
I came here to meet more of you that I don't know who I met before. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, tell you what we could do here is real quick, just go around the room here and just say your name and where you live, what street you live on. Dominic, sorry.
Dominic Auschwitz, I live off of the end of Lockheed Court, so a couple blocks.
He's our airport manager too. Yeah, okay. Steve?
Don't lose me. I've been in Rockies, I've been here since my Steve. Very happy.
Okay, okay. I'm with you. Oh, okay. Oh, Mike, Mike,
I live on Boeing about halfway down.
yeah,
Phil Albee, I live on Boeing and United Canada, Pagoda House, and I've been here about 19 years.
Keep corner to me.
Sweet old Baringa. Been here forever.
Jill, or Mike? Okay.
Two doors down.
Okay. And I'm gonna put the board here. Jeff?
Jeff Robertson on the corner of Aronka and Bonanza.
Diane Sharif, Boeing Drive, between Steve and Phil.
Big silver.
Big silver plane, yeah, there you go.
And Terry Bolin on Aronka, right next to Jeff.
Cricket Court on Bonanza Drive since 2004.
Glenn Gordon, I live here.
Hey,
My wife's the one who puts the movie flyers in there.
Oh, we have a state Catholic state party coming up.
Yeah. So just to add before we break is just something I mentioned before. This is the government for our local community here to carry out these responsibilities. But as you look upon the board to do things, there's a responsibility also from the residents here to oversee and participate in what the board is doing. Because I think the worst case we have is a board and these committees that operate in the vacuum, nobody shows up and nobody cares kind of thing. That's the worst case. But your coming here shows that's not the case here. But as in the long term, the things that Phil is pointing out, it says the residents have the responsibility also to watch what the board is doing. That's why there are public meetings. Or actually the board, technically the board holds meetings in public to watch kind of so the public can see what's going on. So I thank you everyone for your participation. So if there's anything else, we're gonna have more of these. We'll take comments anytime. With that, adjourn.
Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you. I know I've mentioned once before, you live across from Barron Court on the other side of the lake. What part of Boeing do you live on?
We're going far end of road.
Say the very far end.
Not the very far end. There's a road that runs right into, you can get right into the area.
Okay.
And it runs right over. We've been there for.
Wow. A long time. What was your first name?
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. That's very, very nice to meet you, Mary Jane.
You next to Gretchen?
Yeah.
Reddick.
Right next to
I used to go over there and sign my airplane up for the free, get out of paying taxes on the airplane.
Oh,
Antique
yes,
airplane.
yeah.
I don't see Gretchen every once a month.
I have tried to talk to you.
Well, I really appreciate you coming here.
What
Well,
said is
ideas.
I have trouble remembering everything, and my husband knows that. Yes. He
I have
knows what's going on.
Now, did you fly? Did you have an airplane?
Yeah, we did. We he flew when we needed to.
Yeah,
He was a commercial.
Oh, he was? Oh, wow.
Company. Rockwell.
Oh, wow. Rockwell, the corporate.
Fly people around.
Okay.
He has flown since he was a little kid. I think he thinks about it every once in a while, but he's been there, done that. So
Yeah.
we're just watching, so we can get out on our back porch. And see
Yeah.
both ends of the runway. And
Oh, nice.
going
Yeah.
on. I love it. I don't want to away.
Yeah, that's what they do. If you don't fly, it's just watching airplanes. It's really great.
No, we've been living in the same house for 25 years. Okay.
Wow.
Had the house built for us.
Yeah. Now, who built your house? Who built your house? Was that Rich Johnson by chance? Okay.
I know he built several.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I don't know if Rich was around then. Too.
My memory.
Understand.
Oh, you're doing great.
Yeah. That's great.
I just asked him.
What's that?
I just asked him.
Oh.
He has all this stuff in his head.
Well, you've been, between the two of you, you've been around quite a bit and seen a lot of changes in what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I would record or save this
I can go back. I don't see anything more.
just to make sure I don't lose it.
I already.
Oh, did you? Okay, good. I see.